Hello everyone and welcome to Luminar Coffee Break. I'm Angela Andrieux and today I want to share with you my top 5 tips on how to capture and process stunning fireworks photos. Coming up this weekend here in the US is a big holiday. We have our Independence Day, and in a lot of areas we get these massive fireworks shows. So I'm going to give you a few tips on how to capture and process those photos so you come away with some great memories. Let me go ahead and share my screen and we will get started. So up on the screen, I have a photo that I captured last year from one of my local fireworks shows. I wasn't able to get to a really great location. Options were really limited because of COVID-19 last year, and my little local show put on a great display. This is the before image, and here's my after. I was able to really brighten up the colors, bring out some of the details, and I'm going to show you exactly how I did it. Before I do that, I want to also share with you a link on my website. So this is an article I wrote several years ago. I'm going to go ahead and pop this into the chat for you guys. And this is an article that I wrote on 5 tips for capturing stunning fireworks photos. So the first thing you want to take into consideration is your location. If you can find something with a cool object or structure in the foreground, something to kind of anchor the photo, that's always really nice. The fireworks by themselves are beautiful, but if you can add something else interesting to your composition, that takes it up another level. The next is to use the right gear. A tripod and a cable release are absolutely essential because you're going to be doing long exposures. I suggest that you pre-focus before the fireworks show starts, possibly even before it gets dark. Set up your camera, focus in on about the area where those fireworks are going to be shooting off, and then turn off your autofocus, lock that in, and if you need to, even use a piece of gaffer's tape or something to tape your lens into place so that way your focus doesn't drift and you're all set for focus for later in the evening. Now, as far as shooting settings, I go for usually ISO 100. I set my camera to bulb mode, which means that my shutter stays open as long as I'm holding the shutter button on my cable release. And I start with an aperture of f9. That gives me a nice wide depth of field. But depending on your lens and camera combination, you might want to play with that a little bit. So that gives you a starting point. Once the fireworks start, when those fireworks, that boom happens, go ahead and start holding down that shutter. You're going to get that fire going up in the sky, all the little lights trailing down. Hold that button for, 6 to 10 seconds, release, check your back of your camera, and see what you got. You can shorten or lengthen that depending on what's going on, and keep doing that for as many shots as you want. Now, at some point, depending on the length of the show, you might end up with a lot of smoke in the sky, and that's at a point where I like to just put the cable release down and sit there and just enjoy the show. I do keep that cable release handy, though, for that finale, because usually there's like a big boom, tons going off all at once, and I want to capture that finale typically, so keep that cable release handy. You'll know when the finale is happening. So those are my tips for capture. Let's go ahead and take a look at an image for processing. So like I said, this is my after image. Here's the before. And I'm going to turn off the side-by-side view, right-click on my photo, go to my adjustments, and revert it to the original. From there, I'm going to go right over into Edit and into my tools and start with my Accent AI. And that's going to just even out that tone. You see it's waking up some of those shadows. And I like it because it's bringing out some of this haze here. From there, I want to go ahead and change my composition a little bit. I'm going to straighten it out, just grab the double-headed arrow right outside of my picture to straighten out my horizon. I think right about there is good. And I'm also going to change my aspect ratio to 4:5 and pull this in a little bit tighter. There's not much interesting happening in the foreground, so we're going to get rid of most of that and pull this in from the top. Now I am basically framing this in the middle of my frame. You can put it a little off to the side. You can keep it straight in the middle. I like it right in the middle, but it's completely up to you how you want to frame your photographs. I'll hit return on my keyboard to go ahead and commit that crop. And already this image is looking a lot better. So here's the before, and there's the after. Now one thing I'm noticing is we have a really bright spot here down in the bottom. Some of these other lights really don't bother me, but that one right there bugs me. So I'm going to scroll down to the clone tool, and we're going to get rid of that really fast. Now you'll notice when we go ahead and launch the clone tool, it reverts back to our unedited image. So what we want to do is set our point for reference, and you notice in the middle of the screen it says click to set the source, so I'm setting my source right about there. And then I'm going to make my brush smaller using the bracket key on my keyboard and just paint that source in over that light, maybe a little bit more. There we go. I've gotten rid of it. And I can go ahead and click on the clone tool again to close it, apply that tip, and now my rest of my edits pop back up. Now we're ready to work on this a little bit more. I'm going to go up to the top again to our light tool and adjust the white balance. So typically when I shoot at night, I like a tungsten white balance. So when I set this here, I like how it made the sky kind of blue, but it cooled it off too much. So I'm going to adjust that with my temperature slider and bring that back up to the point that it looks natural. And I think right about there is a good balance between a little bit of blue in the sky and the warmth of the fireworks. Next, we're going to go to Structure AI. Let me go ahead and scroll down a little bit. And this is going to add a bit of mid-tone contrast and just a little bit of detail pop to those fireworks and to the sky, that smoke back there. I think that looks really, really good. Now let's go down to our color and bring up the vibrance a little bit just to make those colors pop a little bit more. That looks awesome. And lastly, I'm looking at this and I'm seeing the bottom here. There's some interesting things going on the bottom, but it's not really that great. And the fireworks here in the middle are truly our point of focus. So I want to darken down this foreground a little bit. I'm going to scroll down to the bottom and use our dodge and burn tool. I want to make sure I'm in darken mode. And I would like to bring the strength down pretty low. I'll use the bracket key on my keyboard to make my brush a bit bigger. And then I'm just going to paint over the bottom here and darken up some of those brighter tones right there across the bottom because they're just not interesting enough. They don't add that much to the image, but I don't want to get rid of them entirely. So I'm doing several strokes at a really, really low strength and building them up with each stroke that I make. So there we go. If I think I went too far, I can always back off on the overall amount. And you can see that just lessens that effect a little bit. And we can take a look at the before and the after. And I think that strengthens the overall composition of the image. Now we can take a look at our details. Because we brought up the exposure quite a bit, there are most likely going to be some noise and some things that we need to handle if we zoom in. So let's go into 200% and take a close look at our details. As suspected, there is a fair bit of noise there in the background, and that's because we brought that exposure up fairly dramatically. If we take a look at the before, it was almost completely black. So we brought out detail that we didn't even know was there. You can even see a couple of stars out there, which is pretty crazy. All right, so we'll start with denoise, and we're going to use the luminosity denoise to smooth out some of that fine detail. Bring that up, and I highly recommend making sure when you're working with denoise or details, zoom into at least 100%. That way you're going to be able to see what's really happening with your image. I think I might even pull that up a little bit more. And now to compensate for the fact that denoise does soften the image somewhat, I'm going to go to our details tool. I'm going to actually pull my small details to the left, but I want to bring my medium details and my large details up to the right. And let me zoom back in. I'm not sure why it popped out there. Go back to 200%. Give that a moment to render. There we go. And I'm also going to add a little bit of sharpening. So let's take a look at that before and the after. You can see it brings a little bit more detail and pop to those edges and really does a nice job of compensating for the detail that was removed when we did denoise. Now let's go ahead and zoom back out and take a look at our before and our after. So I hope that gives you some ideas on how you can enjoy this coming 4th of July holiday or wherever you are in the world, your local festivals, your local fireworks shows. Hopefully you get to see some of those soon and put some of these techniques to work. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you give us a thumbs up here on YouTube. We always enjoy seeing that. Our producers really enjoy seeing that. And if you have any questions, be sure to pop those into the chat. I'm going to go ahead and take a quick look here and make sure I didn't miss anything. I want to say hello to German, Joseph, Mark, Pat. So good to see you guys. And Victor. So glad you were able to join me and spend some time with me today. So make sure you pop any questions into the comments below or into the chat pod. I do keep a look at those and try to answer as many of them as I can. With that, I want to wish you guys a wonderful rest of your day. I will see you tomorrow. Bye, everyone.